Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Tech Tip Tuesday. We will be talking about mirroring today, comparing AWS and Zadara. So without further ado, here's Howard. Howard, could you make your full screen? Are you in full screen mode?
I believe so. Is it? Can you see it now?
Looks good on my end.
Okay. We are ready to go then. Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening. This sort of follows last week's with snapshots, and it's snapshots and mirroring are very related. Basically, if you think what mirroring is, it's basically a snapshot of your data, and it's copied to a different destination. So in other terms, if you think of it as a RAID group or just a plain RAID set, it's similar to a RAID 1 type of protection. Now in AWS and also in Zadara, we do it at a block level. So what that means, it captures everything on the volume, all the operating system and all the files. And there's two ways to do mirroring. One is synchronous and asynchronous. And the common way is asynchronous, but we also do support a synchronous mode. So if you look at our replication between your data, either in Zadara or AWS, we both support the block. Similar to last week when we talked about with snapshots, AWS doesn't have a NFS or CIFS, but it does capture your block files or all your files at the block level. We can do a volume level if it's either a block or file, so it's CIFS or NFS, and it's all both are snapshot based and asynchronous. The difference between AWS and Zadara is that we also support a synchronous mode, which is called multi-zone, and I'll show you how to do that, how to create a multi-zone VPSA. Everything is done on demand, so with the AWS, you can either schedule it, or you can, well, you won't be able to schedule it. You have to do it through a command line, through like a cron job or something like that. But built into Zadara, you can have your own schedule. You can go down to as fast as once a minute. Another thing that we support is what we call as reverse migration. And so since we keep track of all the snapshots between both data sets, what happens is the data, if you break a mirror, just a term that we use to separate the source and destination, the destination can take over as a disaster recovery site. And then any data that is integrated or changed on the disaster recovery site can get copied back, and that's what is called a reverse migration. And it's all done at a snapshot level. So you can go back and forth between source and destination on a disaster recovery site. So if you look at how to do it in AWS, you remember last week we did create some snapshots. I created a new one. I think this was Saturday. And basically, to do a mirror, you're going to have to do a snapshot. And here's a volume. I already created a snapshot. And this is done within your EC2 panel. So if we go over here to volumes, you would first select the snapshot or the volume, create a snapshot. Now I already created a snapshot. So to migrate the data to another AWS availability zone, you go ahead and do a copy. So I go ahead and copy this volume, and I give it a different destination region. So, for example, this one's in Virginia right now. If I want to go to the West Coast, for example, Northern California, this is the AWS West 1, or you can go AWS West 2. And then I just go ahead and copy that. Now what will happen is the whole snapshot's going to get copied over, and it'll be available at some point in time, and they don't give you any notification. You'll just have to check it when it's completed. once you have that volume, you can go ahead and mount it using another EC2 instance. Now the process is very similar to in what we have in our GUI. If I can find our window here. So from the VPSA, what you would do is basically you would create a mirror. So before we do a mirror, let me back up, and you have to define a remote VPSA. So a remote VPSA is similar to AWS region. So in this particular one, I already created a region or another VPSA in AWS 1. So my Tech Tip Tuesday VPSA is in what we call Cloud 2 or AWS 2, and this will go to AWS 1. And they're in two different data centers that are attached to AWS. And basically, they're in DC2, DC5, and Virginia. So once you have that established, you can go ahead and mirror your volume. So for example, I have an own cloud here, and it's on a SSD, and we can go ahead and mirror that volume. So to mirror the volume, you basically give it a mirror name. And then you give it a destination. And then you can specify the volume. And then you can also select the VPSA. Now there's two ways to go ahead and create a mirror, and you can do a local mirror. And the advantage of having a local mirror is that you can take, for example, these are SSD. This volume's on an SSD pool. I can migrate it or mirror it to another set of drives. So that gives me additional protection without, having a higher expensive media for SSDs. So I can mirror those to my local drive, and I can move them to SATA, for example. Or I can go to a remote. So here I have a remote, and then I can specify the destination pool, and I go ahead and specify my policy. Now we have hourly, daily, weekly, and you can also specify your own policy if you pre-create them. And then you just specify all of them or one of them, and just do a submit. And what will happen is this will create a snapshot. I already did this before, so let's go back.
We have a question. When selecting the VPSA that you'd like to back it up to, is it a wise move to create a separate VPSA just for your backup purposes? Does it really matter?
So the secondary VPSA is usually done for a DR, or a disaster recovery site. So it's often best to do, if you want to do a backup plan, I recommend doing backup to S3. If you want to do a DR or even like a quick way to do a recovery, I would do a different VPSA. But usually the DR is going to be from like East Coast to West Coast, or even if you can do like a Amazon to a partner VPSA or partner cloud. So if you wanted to move your data into, for example, into the Midwest in Dallas region, you do that. And that's how you do the mirroring.
Great. Thank you. Hopefully that answers the question.
So when you create the mirror, you have to have a different destination volume name, because what happens when you separate the mirror, the linkage between your source and destination VPSAs, what will happen is it'll create a new volume, and it has to be unique. So I already had a own cloud there, and then we'll specify our SAS. And then that'll go ahead and create the mirror. Now you can also do this from the mirroring tab over on the left side of the navigation, and you can create it through the create button up here, and then you can see your existing jobs that are running right now. So here it's doing a synchronization between the two VPSAs, and you can see that the data is being transmitted. So it's relatively fast. This is pegging between 50 and or 80 and 30 megabytes a second, and then it's already completed here at this point. So if you go over a longer distance from east to west, it'd be a little bit slower because this is relatively within a few miles of each other. You're going to get really good performance for backup.
Does the type of data matter in that instance, or?
No, it doesn't matter. It's all done at the block level, so it just copies the block.
Great.
So on the, we also offer what we call a synchronous mirroring, which is called multi-zone. And let me show you how to go ahead and pull that up. Let's pull up this guy here. And so if we look at our Zadara provisioning portal here, to create a multi-zone, right now we only have one provisioned in our larger clouds, which is going to be under Amazon. And you would create a new VPSA, and then it'd be region 2, and then you can give it different zones. So we have zone 0, zone 1, and if you want to do a multi-zone, you would select multi-zone protection zone. Now you get what you get is this multi-zone baby, and then you can select a different engine if you like. And then what happens is when you write to your volume, the data is going to be sent across to both data centers. So what we do is we spin up a controller on zone 1 and zone 2, and when the I/O goes in for a write, it goes into both zones. It goes into both zones, and then when the write completes, the I/O will continue on the server side or the host. For the reads, the really nice advantage, it'll always take the closest zone. So if you're connected to zone 1 with your host, it'll go to zone 1 on your host. And if it happens to fail, that particular data zone or the data center goes down, it'll automatically transition to the other data center. So that pretty much concludes on the replication or the mirroring for this week. Or beyond that. And then next week we'll be covering a new topic. We're trying to get our Zios up and running in the lab here, and if I can get the Zios up and running, we'll do a short demo on that.
And everyone, I just put in the chat area the bit.ly for Ask Me Anything. That's where you can go and put your suggested topics in. So if there's something specific that you would like us to cover, then please go in and let us know. Right now, if you go in and request a topic, if we choose your topic, we'll send you a $25 gift card to Starbucks. So for the next couple of Tech Tip Tuesdays, you can enjoy a coffee on us while you learn something. So please go to the bit.ly there, bit.ly/askmeanything, and let us know what you'd like to learn about, because we'd really like to cater these to you and make sure that you're getting the most out of these. So let us know. And in the meantime, if you have any questions about today's episode, any of the previous episodes, or anything in general related to enterprise storage or the VPSA specifically, You can reach Howard at howard@zadarastorage.com or on Twitter at HowardY. And then, of course, the VPSA user manual is available here and on our website as well in the support tab. So thanks again for joining us today, and we hope to see you next week.